Get a life. My sister told me in front of my entire family, as she celebrated her new job. Stop hanging around James just to feel important. He's rich and successful, you're not. He won't marry you. I just smiled till she saw whose signature was on her paycheck. What happened next was rather unexpected. Hello, thank you for your support. This means a lot to us. We're on a journey to our first 100 subscribers. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to John Gray from London, UK. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's dive into the details of today's story. It was supposed to be a celebration, not an execution. But by the second round of drinks, I already knew where the night was going. We were seated at that overpriced Italian place my sister loved. The kind of place that plated humiliation in small portions and charged triple for the ambience. She was glowing, of course. Fresh blowout white blazer, red lipstick that only smug women pull off without looking like they're trying. She'd just landed a life-changing job at some prestigious firm downtown. I already knew which one. I'd signed off on the hire myself 2 weeks ago. But she didn't know that. Not yet. Instead, she was basking in the attention like she always did, tilting her wine glass just right so the ring light from her phone could catch the stem. Our parents, predictably, hung on every word like she was unveiling state secrets. She talked about clients she hadn't met yet, teams she hadn't led, opportunities she hadn't earned. And no one questioned it. They never did. When you're the family's crown jewel, you can spit in someone's face and call it holy water. So what have you been up to? She asked me sweetly, like someone asking a stray cat what it eats for dinner. The whole table went quiet. I smiled. Just work. Still doing whatever it is you do. She tilted her head like she couldn't quite remember if I was a freelance nail tech or an Instagram scammer. Our mother laughed too loud. She's always been private about her little ventures. My sister gave a tight, theatrical chuckle. Well, not everyone's cut out for the big leagues. There it was. The casual gut punch. Right on cue. I reached for my water. Ice clinked like it wanted to scream for me. Then she twisted the knife. Oh, speaking of, remember that guy you used to follow around? What was his name, Matthew? Mark. Michael, I said quietly. Yes, Michael. She wrinkled her nose. He was cute, I'll give you that. But kind of serious. Stiff. Not your type at all. I felt my husband's name like a spark inside my chest, hot and dangerous. But I kept my voice even. He's doing well. Oh, I bet, she said, raising her glass again. Probably married some lawyer or finance exec by now. The serious ones always do. Everyone laughed. Even Dad. Even my aunt, who once told me I was the real beauty of the family, in a whispered tone like it was a secret she shouldn't have shared. I could feel the heat rising behind my eyes, but I didn't flinch. I just watched her, the way you might watch a drunk driver barreling down a dark road. No awareness, no brakes, just blind acceleration. And then the toast came. To new beginnings, she chirped. And to leveling up, because not everyone can spend their life clinging to rich men and calling it ambition. She looked straight at me when she said it. Not a blink. Not a flinch. Just a slow sip of wine, eyes gleaming. I didn't say a word. Not even when the whole table laughed again. This time a little too loudly. Pity dressed as humor. Mockery disguised as tradition. Instead, I looked down at my plate, adjusted my napkin, and mentally rehearsed the next morning's executive call. There were 3 pending promotions to review, 2 client contracts to renegotiate, and 1 very recent hire to monitor. My sister. The firm she was bragging about? I owned it. 91% to be exact. And the man she'd laughed off as a fling I never secured? He was waiting at home, in our kitchen, heating up leftovers and reading case notes from his latest deposition. When the check came, she made a show of grabbing it and waving her card. Don't worry, I've got this one, she said with a wink. I'm a real adult now. The waiter looked at me before taking it. I nodded. Thank you, Ms. Blake, he said softly. My sister didn't catch it. She was too busy Instagramming her wine glass. But our father did. He blinked. Opened his mouth. Closed it again. I stood up, smoothed my coat, and grabbed my clutch. Congratulations, I said to her finally. She smiled smugly. Thanks, sis. I walked out into the night, heels clicking like punctuation. Let her have her moment. Let her believe she owned the world. She was walking into my kingdom. And she didn't even know the crown she was trying on already had my name carved into it. There's a certain silence that comes after a public humiliation. Not loud, not angry. Just hollow. Like the air's been sucked out of a room you didn't realize you were suffocating in. The night after the dinner I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even tell Michael what she said. He knew something had happened. His eyes were searching mine before I even walked through the door. But I just kissed him on the cheek and asked about his day. That was my revenge in a way. Peace. Intact. Undisturbed. I spent the weekend doing what I always did, managing. Quietly. Remotely. Behind the scenes. I checked the onboarding documents. My sister's hire was finalized. She'd start Monday, under the innovation division, 3 floors beneath the executive suite. She wouldn't see my name unless she went digging. And she never did. That was her flaw. She assumed the spotlight revealed everything worth seeing. But the real power, the real leverage, that lived in shadows. Monday came. She posted a photo outside the building. Polished shoes, pantsuit, a caption about first days and fresh starts. My staff forwarded it to me. I didn't respond. I just forwarded a revised org chart to the division lead and flagged her as observe, high conflict risk. Neutral language. Nothing personal. Just business. She didn't even realize she was walking through my doors. Instead, she sent a blast email introducing herself to the department. So excited to be joining the team. It read. Bringing big ideas and even bigger energy. My phone buzzed twice with forwarded screenshots. My assistant added a smiley face. I didn't reply. Let her shine. Let her walk the halls like she owned them. Let her talk about disrupting paradigms and redefining synergy in meetings she didn't understand. Let her confuse volume for value. It was the same act she'd been running since we were kids. Say it louder, flash the smile, talk like you're the answer to a question no one asked. I used to shrink in the face of it. I used to believe she was better, smarter, more real. I know better now. When I dropped out of college, she told our parents I'd spiraled. Said it with wide eyes and fake concern, like she wasn't thrilled to finally have center stage. When I started building my business, one client at a time, mostly referrals, she laughed. Told our mother I was playing dress up with other people's money. And when I brought Michael to a holiday dinner, years ago, before anything was official, she zeroed in like a shark. Flirted with him. Rolled her eyes when I talked. At one point she leaned in and whispered, "Men like that don't marry girls like you." I had smiled. Said nothing. But I never forgot it. Now, years later, I watched from my corner office, security feed muted, no sound, just a screen. As she breezed through the lobby on her first break. Still performing. Still holding court by the coffee machine like it was a runway. She was charming the IT lead. Cornering the intern. Laughing too loud at something on her phone. None of it surprised me. What did surprise me was how little I felt. No rage. No heat. Just distance. I was a continent away from the girl who used to cry herself to sleep over being second best. That version of me would have charged down there, pulled rank, made a scene. But I didn't need to anymore. Because that girl was gone. She'd been replaced, not by a harder version, but by a quieter one. Sharper. Strategic. The kind of woman who lets someone walk into their own undoing. By Wednesday, she still hadn't figured it out. She dropped my name in a meeting. As if I were a stranger, a footnote. Mispronounced it. Got the title wrong. Told the group I was some early-stage investor who got lucky. Someone sent me the recording. I watched it during lunch. I didn't laugh. I didn't even flinch. Instead, I pulled up her employee file and adjusted a few fields. Not punishment. Just boundaries. A slow, deliberate detour. She didn't need to fall, just wander. By Friday, she was glowing again. Happy hour with coworkers, selfies on the rooftop patio, captioned, "Ending the week with wins." I closed my laptop. Let her think this was the top. Let her believe she'd arrived. Next week, the first pay stub would hit. And when she saw whose name was printed across the bottom of that check, not in ink but in ownership, the shine would crack. I wasn't chasing her anymore. I was just watching the lights flicker. She must have printed it out to gloat. That's the only reason I can imagine her bothering to look at a physical copy. Most employees skim their deposits on the app, confirm the numbers right, and move on. But not her. My sister treated her new job like a victory lap. And what's a lap without spectators? It was Friday morning. I had just stepped into my office. Not the glass-walled executive suite everyone expects, but a tucked-away space 2 floors above the main action.
No name plate. No frills.
Just clean surfaces, clean decisions. Power without theater. My assistant Mara knocked once and stepped in. She saw it, she said. That was all she had to say. I minimized my inbox and sat back, waiting. 10 minutes later my phone buzzed. Incoming call. Lila, personal. I let it ring. She tried again. Then the text. Is this some kind of joke? Why is your name on my paycheck? I didn't respond. I just opened the internal messaging system and watched as a ping came through from her department lead. Hey, heads up. Lila just stormed out of a meeting. Said she needed to talk to someone higher up. No idea what's going on, but she's pissed. I thanked him calmly. Closed the window. Waited. 15 minutes later, the elevator opened. Not the staff one, the executive lift. She must have conned someone into giving her access. I heard the click of her heels before I saw her. That trademark stride, fast, precise, a little louder than necessary. She burst into the room like she owned it. You're the CEO? She didn't even sit. Just stood there, breathing hard. The printed stub crushed in one hand like it had personally betrayed her. I stayed seated. Looked up slowly. I'm the majority owner, I said. But we don't use titles here. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I watched it, the flicker. That moment when her brain tried to reorganize the world into a shape that made sense. I'd seen it before in smaller doses. The time she found out my startup got acquired. The time she spotted me driving a car she assumed I was borrowing. Little fractures in her story. This was the shatter. You let me, she gestured wildly. You let me talk about this job, this firm, like it was mine. You let me brag about working here while you sat there and listened, I said. She blinked. That's what you always wanted, right? For me to listen. For me to clap while you talked. She moved to speak, but I held up a hand, slow, measured. You were hired because you're good on paper, I said. But you were also hired because I wanted to see what you'd do without the applause. No shortcuts. No family name advantages. Just you. Her jaw tightened. That's manipulative. It's strategic, I said. She stared at me for a long time. I watched her eyes dart to the furniture, the walls, looking for something familiar, something she could mock or minimize. But there was nothing. I'd left nothing of myself here. And that was what unsettled her most. She couldn't categorize me, couldn't reduce me. You married him, she said finally. Quiet. Like the words hurt her throat. Yes. For how long? 3 years. Silence. She laughed, bitter, broken. You always pretended to be so humble. So invisible. And the whole time, you were planning this? What, some grand takedown? No, I said. I was building a life. She sank into the chair like her legs had betrayed her. For a moment, she looked like a child again, stunned, exposed, undone. Do Mom and Dad know? No, why? Because they would have made it about you. She flinched, and I saw it, not just the pain but the recognition. Somewhere deep inside, she knew I was right. All those years, every accomplishment of mine had been framed as a consolation prize next to her spotlight. The quiet wins didn't count unless they could be wrapped around her name. I worked hard for this job, she said. I earned it. I nodded. You did. Which is why you still have it. For now. Her head snapped up. I leaned forward, folding my hands. But we're going to make some adjustments. Realign your role. See where your strengths are most needed. You're demoting me. No, I said calmly. I'm repositioning you. There's a difference. She stood, anger finally catching up to confusion. You think this makes you better than me? No, I said. It makes me free. She stared at me, chest rising, fists clenched. And I saw it, the shift, the fall. The moment she realized the game had changed and the rules were no longer hers to write. She turned and walked out without another word. I waited until I heard the elevator doors close before breathing out. Not because I was scared, because I was calm. And for the first time in my life, she had to sit with the silence I'd lived in for years. She lasted exactly 1 week before the transfer notice landed on her desk. No dramatic meeting.
No announcement.
Just a polite, clinical email sent at 8:01 a.m. on Monday morning. Subject: Departmental Reassignment. Hi Lila. As part of our Q2 restructuring initiatives, your role has been reassigned to the Strategy and Partnership Subdivision, Team C. Your new office will be on Level 7, Workspace 214B. This shift is not a demotion, but a realignment to better match skill sets with ongoing projects. Please report to your new team lead by 10 a.m. Thank you for your continued work. Executive Operations. There was no signature, as I didn't need one. I watched from my office, not via camera this time but through the internal message logs. Slack lit up like a fireworks show. Did you hear about Lila? WTF is Team C? That's like internal compliance hell. Oof. She just walked past my desk, face like stone. I sipped my coffee and said nothing. The reassignment wasn't punishment. I didn't want her humiliated. I just wanted distance. And to draw a line. Somewhere beneath the mess of family dinners and childhood competition, she had started believing I owed her proximity, that she had a right to my life, to the company I bled for, to the narrative I built brick by brick in the dark. Not anymore. At 10:11 I got the ping, Lila is waiting outside. I paused, let it breathe. Then buzzed the door. She entered without knocking, holding her phone in one hand and the reassignment email in the other. You moved me, she said, incredulous. I realigned you. Team C? That's where projects go to die. That's where underutilized resources get a second chance to prove themselves. She blinked, the words landing like a slap she hadn't seen coming. I'm overqualified for that team. Then prove it. Rise above it. You've always said you were the better one. Her mouth opened but nothing came. Just a tiny twitch in the corner of her lip, the beginning of a snarl she didn't want me to see. I know what this is, she said. You're punishing me. I stood then. Slowly. Deliberately. Lila, you humiliated me in front of our family. You mocked my career, my marriage, and my intelligence. You've done it for years because deep down it made you feel safe. She flinched. Just slightly. And I let you, I continued. Because I thought if I played small enough, you'd finally love me. Silence. But I don't need your love anymore. I need my peace. And I will not share this company, or my life, with someone who treats my silence as weakness. She stood still. Rigid. Her fingers clenched around the edge of her phone like it was the only thing keeping her tethered. Then she laughed. Short. Bitter. You think this makes you strong? That hiding behind structure and titles and restructuring initiatives makes you some kind of silent warrior. I walked past her to the window, looked down at the city, the very skyline I used to stare at from bus windows, dreaming about being more than a shadow in someone else's story. No, I said softly. It makes me done. She didn't reply. I turned back just in time to see her leave. She didn't slam the door. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just walked out, stiff, silent, and for the first time unsure of her place in the world she used to command by charm alone. Later that afternoon I passed by Level 7. Quiet floor. No corner windows. Just rows of low cubicles and humming fluorescent lights. Her door was closed. She hadn't even unpacked. I didn't stop. She needed the silence now. Not as a punishment, but as a mirror. She was waiting in the garage when I left the building that night. Level P3, near the west exit. The light above her flickered. Not enough to be cinematic, just enough to be real. I saw her silhouette before I saw her face, leaning against one of the support columns like she'd been rehearsing what to say for the past hour. I didn't break stride. Just kept walking toward my car, keys already in hand. You knew I was coming, she said. I unlocked the car, opened the door.
No.
I just knew you wouldn't be able to leave it alone. She stepped forward. The sharp click of her heels echoed, but she didn't sound confident this time. She sounded raw. You've made your point, she said. You won. I didn't turn around. It wasn't a game.
No?
Then what was it? You let me start at your company. Let me walk around like some idiot, bragging about a job I thought I earned. Her voice cracked. You let me humiliate myself. I turned to her then, slowly. She looked smaller under the yellow parking lot lights. Less glossy. Her makeup was smudged, not from tears, not yet, but from the weight of holding them back too long. I didn't let you humiliate yourself, Lila, I said. You've been doing that for years. I just stopped cleaning up after you. She swallowed hard. I saw her reach for something to throw back. A memory, a dig, an insult. But all she could say was, "You used me." I almost laughed. Used you? For what? Validation I never got? Approval you dangled and then yanked away every time I got too close. She took another step forward. You could have told me. About the job. About him. I looked her dead in the eye. Would you have treated me any differently if I had? She blinked. That was the core of it. The uncomfortable marrow of the truth. She wouldn't have. If anything, she would have twisted it into a performance, told our parents I was flaunting my success, that I'd changed. She would have found a way to stand on top of it, like she always did, heels planted firmly on my back. I didn't tell you, I said, because I needed to know who you were when you didn't think I was worth performing for. And what did you find out? I paused. That you're exactly who I remember. She winced but didn't look away. The wind moved through the garage, just enough to remind us how quiet it had become. My car's engine pinged softly as it cooled, and somewhere above us, a door slammed. I was scared, she said suddenly, voice low, almost too quiet. When I saw your name on that check, I panicked. Not because it was you, but because it meant you weren't chasing me anymore. I didn't answer. I always thought if you stayed smaller than me, I'd feel safer. Like there was balance. But it was never balance. I just needed you under me because I didn't know how to stand on my own. There it was, the first real thing she'd said in years. I leaned against the side of my car, arms crossed. You know, I used to think you hated me, I said. But I think you just hated how easy it was to overlook me. How convenient it was. She stared at the ground. You married him, she said again, like it had just hit her all over. Yes. Does he know what I said about him? No, why not? Because he doesn't need to carry my scars for me. The silence between us felt like a truce neither of us trusted. I could feel the anger pulsing under her skin, but it was tangled with grief now. Not just over me, or the company, or the office she lost, but over the image of herself she could no longer sustain. She looked up finally, and for once, there was no superiority in her eyes. No strategy, just an ache that looked too much like mine. I miss when we weren't like this, she said. I shook my head. We were always like this. You just didn't notice. I opened the car door. Wait, she said. What now? I paused. You work. Or you quit. But I'm not stepping aside to make you feel bigger. Not anymore. She nodded slowly. You won't try to fix it? I already did, I said. For years. Then I got in, closed the door, and started the engine. As I pulled away, I didn't check the rearview mirror. She was still standing there. But for once I didn't feel left behind. She called her the next morning. Of course she did. The message came in as I was reviewing a vendor dispute. One of those little fires that used to consume me until I realized some things don't need putting out. The subject line from my mother simply read, "We need to talk." Immediately. No punctuation. No context. Just that awful maternal weaponization of tone that made everything sound like a personal failing. I let it sit unopened for nearly an hour. When I finally clicked, it was short. Lila told me everything. I'm shocked and deeply disappointed. Come by tonight. We need to fix this before the family dinner next weekend. Fix this. Not congratulations. Not you built something extraordinary. Not even a question. Not a how could she have not known. Just fix this. I closed the laptop. Sat back. Breathed. This was always how it went. Lila could light the house on fire, and I'd be handed the bucket, then blamed when it wasn't enough to save the furniture. By 7, I was standing outside my mother's front door. Hands cold even in gloves. The porch light was on, but the rest of the house felt dim. Not unlit, just uninterested. I stepped inside. My mother was already in the kitchen, half listening to something on the radio, chopping carrots with the kind of precision that always made her seem far too calm. She didn't turn around. You look tired, she said. Long week. I heard. I waited. Nothing. She didn't tell you the whole story, I said finally. She didn't need to. You blindsided her. I stared at the back of her head. I offered her a job she qualified for. She got it. She still has it. My mother turned then, wiping her hands on a towel, eyes narrowed. That's not the point. Of course it wasn't. The point is you made her look like a fool. In front of coworkers. In front of the family. She did that to herself. She's your sister. She's been humiliating me for years. She stepped closer. You've always been so sensitive. No, I said, and the word came out sharper than I meant it to. I've been quiet. There's a difference. The silence in the room shifted. Not broken, just pressurized. Like air before a storm. She said you married that man just to compete with her, my mother said. Is that true? I felt something in me recoil. I married Michael because he saw me before anyone else did. Her face softened, but only for a second. I just don't understand why you'd keep it a secret. The job. The marriage. All of it. If you're so proud of yourself, why hide? Because nothing I ever did was mine if they knew about it. I didn't hide, I said quietly. I protected it. My mother sighed, one of those long theatrical exhalations that made it clear the problem wasn't just me. It was her disappointment in who I refused to become. She's not perfect, she said. But she's always meant well. I almost laughed. She told me I'd never be enough for someone like Michael. She said men like that don't marry girls like me. She was young. She said it 2 years ago. She closed her eyes like hearing it out loud made it harder to ignore. And still, when she opened them, it was the same expression I'd seen since I was 13, tired of my feelings. Ready to move on. You need to be the bigger person, she said. I have been, I said. My entire life. I picked up my coat, slid it over my shoulders. She's quitting soon, I said, hand on the door. Not because I want her to, but because she can't stand being average somewhere. She doesn't control the narrative. She said you reassigned her out of spite. I did it to draw a line. My mother didn't follow me to the door. You always were good at walking away, she said softly. And I smiled. A small bitter thing. No, I said. I'm just finally good at not turning back. I stepped into the cold. Let them sit in their version of the story. I had lived in theirs for long enough. It was a Tuesday. Mid-morning. I was halfway through reviewing a proposal draft when Mara stepped into my office without knocking. A breach of protocol. She never committed unless it mattered. She's gone, she said simply. I didn't ask who. I didn't need to. Effective immediately, Mara added. Cleared out her desk. Sent an email. It's brief. I closed the file. Show me. Mara handed me her phone, screen already open. The email was only 3 lines. To whom it may concern, effective today, I resign from my position at the firm. Thank you for the opportunity.
Lila Black no fanfare.
No drama. Just absence. Like a door swinging closed in an empty hallway. I passed the phone back. Did she say anything to the team? Mara shook her head. She left early. Before most people came in. Of course she did. She always knew how to make an exit, just never how to sit in what came after. I nodded once. Let HR process it. When Mara left, I sat still for a long time. Not triumphant. Not even relieved. Just still. It's funny, the kind of fantasies you grow up with when you're the one always watching from the sidelines. For years, I used to daydream about winning. About the moment she would look at me, really look, and see I'd become something worth reckoning with. I thought it would feel like fire. Like lightning. Like validation finally arriving with a crown in one hand and an apology in the other. But it didn't feel like that. It felt quiet. Felt like a string going slack. Around noon I passed her old office. The desk was cleared, papers neatly stacked, keycard left on top. No drama. No perfume lingering in the air. Just an empty chair and a very faint outline where her coffee mug had lived, like a shadow she hadn't meant to leave behind. By afternoon, people were already moving on. Her name faded from Slack. Her picture taken down from the org chart. HR would wrap it all up in a few clicks. Her story with the company, just data now. A start date. An end date. Nothing in between that could capture what she'd carried in with her, and what she failed to carry out. That evening I stayed late. Michael called around 6. Home in 30, he said. Want me to pick up anything? No, I said. I'll cook tonight. He paused, surprised. You okay? I smiled. Yeah, just needed to be the one who ends something today. I ended the call and sat for a minute longer, looking out at the skyline. The same skyline we used to pretend meant something when we were kids playing grown-up in the backseat of our father's car. Lila used to point out the buildings she'd work in. I used to stay quiet because I hadn't figured out where I fit yet. Turns out it was never about the buildings. It was about the space between them. The silence no one claimed. The rooms no one thought you belonged in until you built them yourself. Before I left, I opened her resignation email one last time. Stared at it. Waited to feel anything. Grief. Guilt. Triumph. Regret. But all I felt was done. I clicked archive. Not delete. Just enough to let it fade into the background where it belonged. Let the others chase the light. I had finally made peace in the dark. It happened on a Tuesday. A different one. Quiet. Warm. One of those early spring days where the air pretends it's summer but the wind still remembers winter. I was walking through the lobby late morning, coffee in hand, thinking about nothing in particular. The security guard nodded as I passed. Not with the stiff, rehearsed politeness I used to get, but something softer now.
Familiar.
The elevator opened, and I stepped inside just as a young woman rushed toward the doors, breathless. She was new. Still carried a canvas tote instead of a structured bag. Her blazer was too big, but not in a trendy way, in a first job, first paycheck kind of way. I hit the open door button. She exhaled gratitude. Thank you, she said, flushed. I'm on level 9. Innovation team. I smiled. You'll like it up there. She squinted. I think I've seen you before. I didn't answer right away. I rarely did. But then she snapped her fingers. Oh, you're the owner, right? You're her. Her. It didn't sound like awe. It didn't sound like fear. It sounded like recognition. She hesitated. Sorry. I didn't mean to be weird. I read about you before I applied. You built this place from nothing, right? I nodded once. That's right. She smiled. That's kind of amazing. The doors opened on her floor, and she stepped out, turning once before the glass closed again. You're why I took the job, she said. I wanted to work somewhere that felt like I could matter. And then she was gone. The elevator kept moving. Higher. Quiet. I didn't smile right away. I just stood there still, the words settling over me like a second skin. Not heavy, not loud, but permanent. Like something that had been missing for a long time finally clicked into place. Upstairs, my office was exactly the same. Bara. Tidy. Private. But when I stepped inside, it felt a little different. Like it belonged to someone fully present in it now, instead of someone hiding behind the walls. I set my bag down. Opened my laptop. A few new emails. A calendar request. The rhythm of normalcy. Then a ping. A message from Michael. Dinner? Home by 7. Thought we could sit outside. I replied, perfect. I'll cook. Not because I had to. Because I could. I looked around once before logging off. My name was still missing from the plaque on the door. My face wasn't on any website header. There were no framed degrees or trophies behind me. Just clean walls and quiet proof. But now I didn't need to be louder to be seen. I didn't need to win the room. I was the room. And the person I'd fought hardest to prove myself to. The girl who'd once sat quiet in a too tight dress at a too loud dinner, humiliated for sport, she could finally rest. Because I had built a world where no one could erase me. And then I walked out, locked the door behind me, and went home. Not to hide. To live. If this story hit something deep like it. If you've ever been the quiet one, the underestimated one, the one who got dismissed until it was too late, drop a comment below. I read every single one. Your stories matter here. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter in this series of quiet revenge and earned freedom. Another story's coming soon, and trust me, you'll feel every word.